So Lee, do we need to announce the meeting?
Yeah, you could just maybe announce the beginning.
Okay, so this is a meeting of the Housing Plan Working Subgroup regarding capacity. And I don't see any attendees yet. And so it's basically, we have a meeting on June 9th and it's to discuss our work for that meeting. Okay, so.
Good luck, I'm leaving.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going through right now what we had.
Do we need to, we don't need to share a screen, do we?
We could if we wanted to. I was probably gonna share. Oh,
Can you do that though? Because she left as the host.
yes, I can share. And I think, can all of you share or
I think we
all
should have that
panelists?
capability.
Who, it says all panelists can share.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I could change it. I just wanted to go through just because because it was Memorial Day weekend, it's been a little crazy. So I haven't, let me just go back and see just what we talked about last time to at least like remind ourselves, and maybe you guys are up to date, but I need to kind of go back.
Or we can take a moment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to the minutes from that day. So let me pull it up. Hold on, let me just. Okay, so I have oh no, that's the 26th was the day that we met with the whole group. It was not the day that we met, right? We met earlier that day.
We did.
And I have,
We met.
I
at
have it.
8.
Yeah, I have it here. Meeting 2. Okay. I'll share. Okay. So where we were is that I had the racial and economic diversity and equity information that I shared. The capacity of town resources. Carol, you had spoken about that. And then Michael talked about the school capacity. And then communication to town. Michael, you were gonna, I think I have like next steps here. But you had talked about that you were gonna talk to Cindy, which I saw that you sent something.
Yep.
The transportation and traffic options. I spoke to Alex and Lee also sent to me. Again, it's project-based. Then the Transportation Management Advisory Committee, and then inventory of the own land. I found that information in the planning maps. Financial overview was up above, and then Needham Housing Authority. There was a little bit of information, but the next meeting, and I don't know if you were able to look at the agenda, Reg is coming from the Needham Housing Authority to speak to us.
Terrific.
So that will be there. And then, but regarding capacity, when he had sent an email before, he had sent this information. So I think we should put this based on information we had from him. The next step was additional information on the demographics, communication, new large houses, stay in district or schooling by Michael. And then Carol, you were look into the Needham Newton.
Yeah, and I haven't done that yet. I just have to call my friend who's on, I have 2 contacts on the Needham Newton chamber. So that's on me, but I will do that over the weekend or Monday.
And then the large group discussion, the larger group discussion was about these goals and milestones, which we talked about in the May meeting. And then MBTA communities is a separate meeting, and the Needham Housing Authority is a separate meeting. So this is today's meeting. So what I'm going to do is, let me stop sharing for 1 second. I think if Michael, I know, sent some things, let me.
Yeah, that was just, then thank you for the recap, Natasha. There were just a few notes that I had received in an exchange that I had with Cindy Gonzalez, our town sort of chief public information officer, on how time is sort of allocated, and as we're looking at capacity with some of the housing components. And so she had shared with me who else sort of is involved in some of the communications with Karen
Mhm.
Sonnenberg, with Tim McDonald's in the public health department as the director there, who are sort of, instrumental with housing, and with the seniors through the aging services division. She had mentioned sort of it's more project-based. So certainly things had spiked up a bit more recently with our housing working group, and certainly with the survey, and had shared all the different sort of organizations that she liaises with in terms of communicating some of the information, and then the process in terms of making sure that all areas are sort of covered in terms of making flyers available at the library or the senior center, and other sort of communication vehicles. And in our last meeting had shared a number of sort of different communications that the town has, with our Facebook, social media, with the weekly newsletter that we get towards the end of the week. But she had also shared some of the external partners that a lot of messages might be sent out to, with like the League of Women Voters, Exchange Club, Rotary, and some of our groups like the Chinese Friends of Needham, Indian Community of Needham, Needham Public Schools, and certainly our elected statewide officials.
Well, and our
So
townwide, our elected townwide officials.
townwide, but I think also maybe some of our like our state representatives, state senator as well.
And so, and is that in the, what do you call it? And is that in the information that you sent?
Yes.
Okay. That's really great. I'm trying to maybe think that maybe some of the stuff, which I think that is really great, is figuring out how do we start compiling all of this, and how do we start making, I guess, are there capacity recommendations? Because we talked yet, we basically, we don't have a steering committee. We just have a committee that basically does administrative, like what's the agenda for the next meeting, that based on what we had agreed upon as a group. And one of the things that we talked about is that we could talk about what we found for 15 minutes, and that there would be a 10-minute conversation with a larger group about it. Then the other group would do 15 minutes, 10-minute conversation, 15 minutes. So we would spend almost an hour, 15 or so going through all the information that we found, with the recommendations, from what we found, not necessarily. And then Karen is going to take all of that, compile it, all the recommendations, as long as the whole group agrees, and then to start creating the plan based on those recommendations that then we individually review and then review as a group. So what I'm thinking is maybe what we should talk about right now, based on the meeting notes and stuff, is what is going into this PowerPoint presentation, and maybe we can just kind of crank it out, and understand what we have to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
That works.
Yep.
So
I
let
know
me,
we talked as well, Natasha, about if there were some pieces that we're sort of compiling that may be more of like an addendum to include, that may not sort of be a part of that. And certainly I think some of the components that I just shared with our communications, I think if we're really trying to stick to some key bulleted items, can probably come up with them, but I think some of them might be more good to knows, or if someone's looking for additional information about how things are handled. But I think at least on the communications front, that there is a good system in place that we have with our PIO, but also too that there's resources within housing and with other departments that we liaise with that are also doing some of the communication, which is very beneficial.
right. Okay, so let me pull up. Let me just start a PowerPoint that we can maybe, so that we can put all that information in. Let me see. I didn't want to start from scratch. I was just trying to find a good one, but I don't see one. Hold on one second. Let me see if this one is a good one. Yeah, this is probably pretty good. Okay, let me just use this as a template.
And if you could excuse me, I'm still listening. I do have to take an urgent phone call for about 10
No
seconds.
worries.
I'll call it if that's okay.
So the housing. And I can put a first slide and everything. I just want to make sure that okay, Carol, so I feel like at least if we can have, okay. So I'm just gonna bring up let me just save this. If I bring up, let me just, you know what I might do is just print this out so that I don't have to be looking at both screens. Hold on one second. What I just opened up a second ago, which is the meeting number 2, because I think that had a lot of information. And so what we want to do is, this is a title sheet. We'll put a title sheet on this. And then, oops. Okay, so what I'm understanding here is that we're looking at, maybe this is, I'm just creating a cartoon set for this. So maybe this is an overview, you know, and kind of an overview of what we did, or a summary, or an agenda. Right?
An outline, it's
Or,
just like it's an outline of what we looked at.
right. And so what I have here is that the outline includes racial and economic diversity and equity. Right. Sorry, I hate that.
Sorry, I'm back.
Okay.
Everything's okay?
Everything is okay, yes.
The dangerous or whatever there's some urgent thing made me nervous. I was like, oh gosh, there's something wrong.
Yes, everything is okay.
So I'm gonna do the overarching ones and then school capacity. Did I say Needham Public Schools, right? I'm just going through the meeting notes here.
Sure, no, this is great.
Communication. We're just making it right now. Got to get this done, right? Transportation. TMAC goes under that, right?
I'm sorry?
Yes.
So that'll be under that TMAC.
Oh,
TMAC, yeah.
Maybe we should just do for commercial, right? Commercial projects or for overall town, and then TMAC, right?
Mhm.
And then, oops. Hold on, I don't know how to do this one here. And then TMAC. And then there's, we talked about town-owned land, right?
Well, yeah,
Is that part of somewhere else? Capacity of town?
no, I just thought under transportation would also be traffic, right?
Yeah. Town, and then financial overview of options we determined was under capacity of town resources, right?
Mhm.
So maybe this one has so this is the ADU. Zoning. I'm just basing it on the meeting notes. We can always change this. MBTA communities. Housing development, or there's something about developments at market rate is tax. So then maybe this is financial information, financial, right?
Well, I think it's a little separate. So you're here in the subsectors, you're talking about ADUs, zoning, MBTA communities. And then it would be, I guess, additional, new residential housing. But
Or housing. Let's just say, or new housing. Or future housing. What about future housing? Or,
well, all of those three are future housing.
yeah. So should this say, instead of capacity of town resources,
I guess I would say here, maybe new neighborhood development.
okay. And then town-owned land is down here, right? That's separate. And then Needham Housing Authority. And then we have communications here. Needham, what about the Needham Newton Chamber? Would that be under transportation?
That's really more, that's a question to see if they've done any work on, traffic/transportation. So I think that's there. Yeah.
So that's this one. This is, sorry, Needham. Is there something that we're missing or that we haven't reviewed yet?
Yeah, I'm just trying to review the minutes from our last meeting to see if there's, because I think that provided a nice outline if you're referencing from there.
Natasha, do you want to just pop up the minutes from the last meeting on the screen? You have
Yes.
them.
And that's what I was looking at because I was printing it out. Let me see. Hold on one second. Let me just.
I just don't want to
No, it's
go
it's
back
good.
to my, sometimes
good.
if I go back to my inbox to look for it, I lose the Zoom, so.
No. Okay, so I based it on this: racial and economic diversity and equity,
Mhm.
capacity of town resources, and these are the ADU,
Yeah,
zoning. There's the 500 unit apartment buildings, but is that new neighborhood development?
Well, no, that's really like zoning because we can't do that now. I'm talking about, let's say Muzzy was just sold and you built, new individual homes or townhouses
Right.
there, tracts of new townhouses. It's unlikely that that's going to happen because there's no land for it. But
Right. Okay, MBTA communities, we said here, developments at market rate, and that's the way we said new neighborhood development. So maybe, this one and this one are about new developments and zoning. And then school capacity. So that's the Needham Public Schools. I think that these don't need subheadings. It's all about the schools, right? It's
fine.
And then communication, transportation, and that one, TMAC, it's overall town, like there's no current transportation plan. TMAC, traffic, and Needham Newton Chamber information, right? Then we have the inventory of town-owned land. Financial overview is related to up here. Needham Housing Authority is a separate little blurb that they're going to talk about later. So maybe we can say that this is the impact, that we can. Yeah, this is good because it's just what they're planning on adding and how that could, so, and there, he's gonna be doing a presentation on this, which will be great, because then we'll have that information that day. And that's it. The additional information is, just getting more communication, schooling, and then Needham Newton, and I was just doing the PowerPoint and getting, kind of compiling it all. So I'm gonna go back to this. So, because I'm gonna create this cartoon set for it, and then I'll send it to you, all of you. So I'm gonna share again. So I'm just gonna, okay, so the first one is the racial and economic diversity and equity, right? And so that for this, I'm gonna have, I will add the information. Well, I might as well just do it right now, since we're here. To see if this is what we think we want to do. So for this one, we're gonna do the Nuari information. And for that, let me see where it is here. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to do it just so easily as I normally would. Oh, I can do it here. Okay, I have a couple of things here. And I can always add more things, but this is the Needham. This is the population information of what it is now. So this gives information on the demographics, the ethnicity and the population. And so I think this is helpful just as a big picture. Whatever. Well,
I'm sorry, I can barely read that. So is the percent in parentheses, the percent of the total population that constitutes, or the percent change?
So this right here is Needham. Percent change from 2010 is 11.1%. So we had, this is where we were, and this is in different, so there were the change, it's 81% white, 1.4% Black, 3.8% Latino, 9.5% Asian, and so the percentage change from 2010 is 11.1%. I don't know. This was sent to us for Nuari. What I like about this is that it shows that it's still fairly not very diverse. And that hopefully with some of these initiatives that are happening, it will become more diverse moving forward.
And do we need with this, if we're presenting this, well, we may all know it if it's sort of being presented publicly, sort of abbreviations for any of the different demographics that are sort of abbreviated.
Yeah.
Well, there's 0%. So in Asian Pacific, so yeah, I can find out what that is.
Okay. Just to make sure that we have that if asked, or if it was just sort of a public document.
And I think here, what we gather from here is the town.
But that this shows you, I'm sorry, you know what? All that is showing you is racial diversity. Has nothing to do with the economic part.
No. So this is racial, right? This is racial diversity. You're totally right. So the question is, can I find something on economic diversity? right?
Well, because it's both the initiatives that were,
I agree.
we're trying to achieve both. So the thing would be interesting to understand, and we can infer from the average, home prices, which are 1.5 million recently, that probably the economic diversity has gone the other way. Like, so I would bet you anything the economic diversity has narrowed.
Right. So
But it would be, I think,
we need to find that. We need to find that graph. So that's why I'm putting this together. Like what, so I think what we want to say here is like the big picture for these things, right? Is that the town is currently not very diverse. Newari is working on increasing Newari and other and other town, entities in town, I guess, or other and other groups are working on increasing diversity, right? In town, working closely with Newari will be important in increasing, right, racial diversity moving forward. I mean, we're not gonna solve anything. It's just more like we need to make sure that this is in there saying we need to pair up with Newari because they're doing the work. We don't need to reinvent some of these things, right? Anything. So my thought is, so there are observations and recommendations.
So I guess I would say, though, I wouldn't lead with the town is currently not very diverse. I mean, that's kind of a statement of fact. But if you look at that table from 2010 to 2020, we were just at a very completely non-diverse in 2010. So actually, over 10 years, we've made some pretty nice advances. It's just from a very low base. See what I'm saying?
I think this is the Newari thing. This is a hard conversation to have, and we have to have it because increasing from 275 to 452 people is pretty sad in 10 years. Right? I mean,
but the
majority is still super majority. It's not even like kind of majority. It's like,
but you're not going to change that in 10 years. You're putting initiatives in that will welcome all people, and hopefully
but that happened in 2021. So from 2010 to 2020, when we didn't do anything, we're still 81.1% white. Right? I mean,
I guess population changes are kind of,
yeah, but you go into Newton and it's like very diverse. You go into Brookline.
But it was diverse 10 years ago. That's my point.
Right. So why is this not increasing diversity at a higher rate? Right.
No, I think we're saying different things.
Yeah.
I guess
Well,
what I'm
Newton,
saying is to start off leading with the town is currently not very diverse. That's a statement of fact, but we've made some progress, but there is way more to go. And we think that these initiatives like the forming of Newari and focusing on more flexible, just focusing on these initiatives will improve that.
and I understand. I guess the question is, are we saying what we found and what the recommendations are, or are we just gonna say recommendations? No, for this, I'm just trying to figure out, what do we want to do? Do we want to say the facts, or do we want to just say,
I mean, I think it could be both, that we're incorporating, here's the data, and these are looking to make recommendations from the data. And so I think it's okay to incorporate sort of both. I would agree, in terms of how we lead, but I also don't know in terms of this the way that the information is conveyed, and certainly, would agree in terms of, yes, over the course of a period of time, how much of a person itself sort of increase in different areas, but also maybe looking at the percentage of, for Latino, and we can sort of say, is that number, it's doubled, in the last 10 years. And so does that show?
Right, I guess
we look at things a little bit different.
that's my point. That's my point. It's, yes, it's a low base, and it was a low base 10 years ago, but
I guess when you have 26,000, 13 white people and you have, 452 blacks, even if you increased it in 10 years, if you doubled it in 10 years, it's still pretty pathetic.
That's certainly, I think, a bigger discussion than this group here.
That's right. That's a bigger discussion, and quite honestly,
I think that's the Nuari, but I guess that's the Nuari group.
I would
and
agree,
it's
but
conversations we have all the time. It's
Yeah.
like, it's discouraging in general to look at these numbers, but I guess, how does this relate to the capacity, right? So, are we writing facts or recommendations for all of them, for all the different things that we did?
well, I think that the racial and economic diversity is kind of an overarching mission. It's not ours to answer, right? It's not something that we're supposed to answer in this capacity.
So maybe this is enough, saying this is where we are. We want to make sure that it's in the housing, but this is to say that we want to make sure that Nuari, the work of Nuari, the coordination with Nuari is critical if we want to make any changes here.
Yeah, but I would also add to that we need to have the piece on economic diversity.
I may have it, so I'll look for it. If I have it here, we'll put what the information is. If not, we'll say we need to, and I can write it now. Need, and I'm sure I have it somewhere, but I need to look for it. Need to review economic.
Well, I'm sure that even Kate would have that just from the results of the census. It would be
Right.
on there.
Okay, so those are those two slides, right? So then moving on to the next one, the capacity of town resources, right? That's the next slide here. And so in this case, this is talking about ADUs.
Well, I think you have to, again, have another statement here that it's the issue, the question or answering the adequacy of town resources is dependent on the types of initiatives you are considering. And these are kind of the hierarchies, really, of.
So town resources are dependent on, Carol, you were saying it really well.
Oh, the town resources are dependent, the adequacy of town resources are dependent on the projects under consideration.
Okay, and so then. Sorry, the sharing of the screen is like okay, so. Let me just move this over, see if I can get it on one line. Okay, so ADUs, do we want to say, just kind of say what we summarized at the meeting, not huge increase in utilization of town resources? Why don't we do this first, just because it's 3:41, I want to make sure that we have an hour. So this is the capacity of town resource. What I can do is I can add what we added to the meeting notes,
Okay,
and then I can send it to both of you and you.
That
go-
works. Absolutely.
But just to get, yeah, and if, okay, so that was the first one. The next one is Needham Public Schools. Is this one? Okay, so for this one, I have here that there's a demographic study. Again, I'm just doing the big headlines and then
Sure.
we can, oops. There is the area of growth plan, right? Or growth plan.
it's a
Or
school
school master plan.
under consideration.
Okay. Oops. So school master plan.
Mhm.
Oops.
I think master plan is 2 words.
It is, yes.
Okay. And then I have here, so that includes new buildings.
Yes.
Okay. And then.
And
uh,
again, I would add that it's the same thing. The impact on school capacity is also project dependent.
Yeah. Okay, and under the school master plan, it looks like there was something related to growth, buildings. And you can change this. I'm just trying to, and recent housing projects, impact of recent housing projects, right?
hmm
Okay. And then we can always change all of this. I just want to at least have
Sure.
like a guideline for it.
Good framework.
Communications and then transportation. Okay, communications. And so does this need a statement up here, Carol?
I don't think
If
so.
we needed to, but
Yeah,
Okay, so in the sense of communications, do we have I have here communication person there, I would say town communication, right?
mhm.
And
I'd
then,
say housing, and then maybe any other department communication that liaises with housing. So as
Yeah.
Cindy referenced about like public health, where
So-
they do a lot with the senior center. But I would do that maybe under department communication. I think department communication is where like public health and any other areas. I mean, like schools also deals with some.
the council on aging.
and others.
You could just say other civic organ,
Civic departments,
organizations, or-
departments or organization.
I think they're organizations because they're independent of town government.
Okay. Okay. And then, and I'm trying to think of how do we talk about, I think we should all talk about it. And we should all talk about the areas that we, so as I'm looking at this, maybe, okay. So the next one is transportation. So I'm gonna keep on going. We can do that later, okay. transportation, and that includes these here. And I guess we could say for transportation, we can also have the, transportation is dependent, but I think I mean, should we say that also, like transportation is dependent on projects under construction? But I mean, that's a given, or do you think?
I mean, again, like if let's just say we have, we put an MBTA housing up somewhere, we put a 500, it's not going to happen right now. We don't have the land right now, but let's say we put a development up somewhere where there are 500 units. How would we provide transportation to that development? Or would we have to? So it's kind of project specific, perhaps not as significantly as the other issues, but.
So does this sound okay? Transportation and traffic capacity is project dependent? Or how would you rephrase it?
I would say that with the information that we currently have, it's project dependent, but from what I understand, like from TMAC or maybe I think this is even presented at a select board meeting or had come up, that there is, I think, an overarching town hope to sort of, have a better understanding of our traffic, so that I wouldn't probably lead with it's traffic dependent, but that there is a goal to have a more comprehensive, I would say, maybe as opposed to overarching traffic study for our town. But
Well,
the current state is it's more project dependent on a specific section or housing.
Project dependent at this time.
Yes.
I would
But
say,
for more comprehensive.
yeah, I would say transportation is
Mhm.
project dependent. I think traffic capacity is likely to increase with any kind of new housing.
Okay. Okay, so, and then we'll go through each, and so there's transportation. Let me just keep on going here from the town-owned land, and then the Needham Housing Authority. And for this one, let me just do the Needham Housing Authority. And we can say something for the Needham Housing Authority that presentation tonight will address, goals and capacity. But we can say, these are the observations that we have, or this is the information that we have right now, whatever, I can write it up, but the town-owned land, I was gonna put the
map.
Yeah, I was just gonna put it up right now. Let me see where it is. Here it is. And, oops. I have Zoom in between, like, for some reason I can't move. Okay, there. So I think what the idea here is to kind of just be able to give a couple of bullet points on what this is. So what I'm thinking is that, and then Needham Housing Authority, is this the order that we want to talk about these things? And what I'm thinking is that each of us, I'm going to send the PowerPoint, that each of us kind of formulates the areas that we've been looking at. And then I can put it all together again. Does that make sense?
Sure, unless you want
That
to,
works.
yeah, that's fine. Or unless, Natasha, do you want to put it up on a Google Drive and we can all just work it at the same time, or?
Mhm.
Sure. I'm horrible at Google Drive, but I will do it.
Yeah,
Uh,
whatever's easiest and
Yeah,
however we're working off of, yeah.
But I can do that, definitely. Okay, so do you think that this is the order of how we should, I mean, if, so I'll do the racial and economic diversity and equity. I think Carol, you are doing the capacity of town resources, right?
Yep.
Then Michael, you were doing the schools, communications.
Sure.
I was doing transportation, town-owned land, and the Needham Housing Authority. So I guess the question is, should we move this one, the racial and economic diversity, down so that I have a chunk, so that everybody has kind of a things that they're talking about?
That works.
Yeah.
But with that, I'm just wondering also for the order, do we think that starting with sort of like the land that we have and housing authority should be sort of,
Yeah.
we lead more with that?
Yes. So maybe I should leave that, just kind of say big overarching things first.
Yeah, I think that would make better sense.
And then maybe even
And I think it's okay if we're presenting in different areas, if someone else, you know, the sides flow. So if we don't feel like transportation is, you know,
maybe
higher
you
up.
can do transportation,
Yeah, that's fine.
or you're doing, or however, or Carol, you can do transportation if that makes sense. You know, maybe both you and Michael do transportation, because you're talking to the Needham. And then I'm just doing the racial and economic diversity, town-owned land, and the Needham Housing Authority. And then Carol will do this. And then maybe this is where maybe we'll do this, because then you both share this one. And then Michael ends with the schools and the communications. Does that seem like
That works.
yeah, I would. Yeah, that's fine.
or do you want to put the schools up higher?
I
Or-
would put the schools up higher.
So maybe communications is an overarching also. And then schools. Does that seem like a better?
I mean, I would actually just put communications at the end.
Okay. Oops. It's doing something funky. I'll fix it in a second. It's acting weird, so let me. Whatever, I'll add it. I'll fix it. Nothing like having people watch you do it, you know, to like really like not be able to do anything. Okay, so why don't we do that? I'll put it in a Google Drive. And then we can update it.
Yeah, and if there's like a template, Natasha, that you want us to use, you know, throw it on there. I mean, is there a template that we want to use?
If you guys want to add a template, I don't have anything in mind. I was just gonna
Okay.
put something in the first one, just to kind of a big Needham photo of Needham, you know. Needham housing, what is our group called? We're the capacity building group, but it's for the Needham.
And I
Master
don't know if
plan.
it's worth talking to the other groups to see if they already have the template in place or not. You know, if it's all fine, if we have different templates. that, I don't know if that's helpful to make it easier, just as we're sort of incorporating everything into one plan.
Or we can ask, yeah, we can ask them if they have it. We can ask Karen if she wants to give us a template, so then it's all,
Okay,
That would be great.
okay. So I will move these around. We'll put it on a Google Drive. And then we'll ask for a template. And then we have until next Thursday. I think, isn't the meeting next Thursday, or am I making that up? The 9th? Maybe it's not next Thursday.
no, it is, which,
We
And
meet
so,
on the,
yeah,
I think we're in good shape. I think it's just finessing some of this, and I think the information we have there, and I think can speak to it. It's just, and I think if it's either shared or if you wanted to start, Natasha, and if it's just emailed out and one of us then looks at it next and
Yeah.
then the next, I think that's fine too. Whatever, not to burden you with
whichever's
more
easiest.
stress of if it, whatever's easier for you.
I'm just gonna, I'll send it out, and if you guys want to, it doesn't matter to me, however we want to do it.
Okay.
And I'll see if we have a template. If not, we can, whoever wants to create a template, I have no, I'm open to anything.
Mhm.
And so I think that's it. I'm looking for an image right now, like but I can't seem to find one. Okay, I think this is good, and I think we'll just add more information, and I think, I guess my question in general is to think about, do we have specific recommendations? I think, because we have a lot of facts, but do we have actual recommendations? And maybe we don't need recommendations because capacity is about facts, right, of where we are right now. I guess what are the goals of where we want to be? But I guess they're project dependent. I'm just thinking out loud here. Is there something? Like for the zoning group will have recommendations. Look at this, look at that, look at that. For the capacity, it's more of capacity is achieved once there's a project, or what are the goals for creating capacity for the schools, let's say. Is it kind of seeing what the goals of the housing group are and then understanding how and moving, and using those numbers for the future master plan, or to amend the master plan of the schools?
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, one part is just continued communication so that when a master plan is being developed, do we have the systems in place to be able to support if we're going to be having this type of project here? So I think just one recommendation could just be the continued alignment of all key departments to be able to make sure that we're aware of all the different projects that are happening. So how that can impact, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's, I guess the only thing that my question is there, at the end, do we do recommendations? Make sure that all the departments, that once this master plan is completed, that it aligns with all of the other plans from all the other departments.
Yeah, I would think
Right.
so. If we have them, I would want us to include them, yeah.
And then another one is, I think that we need to do an overarching traffic study for the whole town rather than everything being piecemeal.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you'll know what the poor intersections are, and that when projects are going near those intersections, that those projects have to have.
yeah,
right?
I mean, in fairness though, just I'm putting on my finance committee hat.
Yeah.
The town's never, it's hard to spend taxpayer. It sounds like a great idea. And like if we were a business, we'd probably do it, right? But because projects, traffic studies are often provided and the expenses borne by the developer. Like for the whole Muzzy thing, the fact that we spent money on traffic studies was unique. And that was one property. And we spent way more than $35,000. And that's, one intersection. So if we did that for the entire, it's just, we're never going to be able to get there and do that. It's a
But Carol,
great idea.
I
but-
agree with you, but the biggest issue with everyone in town on every project is traffic, right? So, and schools and everything. I'm wondering if there's a big overarching thing that is not so specialized by trying to figure out how to fix it, but just overarching. Let's say, I'm just throwing out something. If you did a whole, and I don't know what it costs to do them, I could ask them, Howard Stein Hudson and others, just to go into a town and just do kind of just a big picture of these are the major intersections and these are the major places where we have traffic as an overall, and then let the projects do the work. If it's $50,000 and it saves, and it gives us an overarching view of a master plan for where the issues are, would it be worth it? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there that people use it as ammunition for everything.
Well, because they're frustrated. I mean, part of it is they're sitting in their cars and they're frustrated. But it's not a bad question to ask. I think that would really be a question for the select board or for Kate, because they would be the ones that would be, suggesting such a study.
Right.
And
Or another,
recommending that to town meeting.
right. Or another question just in general is, all the studies, can someone compile them all? Can the engineering department just put them all in one location? At least that would help. Every time we have a project, somebody's like, is there a traffic study for this area or is there not, And so just understanding what is available in one repository, and then, I don't know, it doesn't feel cohesive at this moment compared to other things. It may not be where money wants to be spent.
So I do think that's really a question for like Lee's group, probably.
But Lee's group doesn't do it. It's the engineering department that does it.
But they would be authorizing the engineering department to do it. I don't know.
I think it's just a question, like traffic is a huge problem on every project. And just understanding how it gets done and how we can improve the communication about it would just even be helpful, I think.
Mhm.
Because if you already have a traffic study that was done 2 years ago in an area that is highly contentious, then you can use that information, right?
Well, not during COVID, but yeah, theoretically.
Well, I know.
So, but you know what, I am gonna call the Needham Chamber. I was gonna call either Liz Grimes or Lise Elcock. So
Mhm.
Liz might have answers to that. So
Okay,
I'll reach out to her.
that sounds great. Okay, so I will send this out, and then I'll try to put on a Google Drive if you guys want to put it on your Google Drive, and we can work from there. See if there's a template we want to use so everyone has the same template. I'll send an email right now on that so we don't forget. And then it might be good to have just kind of a conclusion, right? That these are a conclusion slide. Of what we think, right? Like just for the different ones, just the big picture, not, and I don't know if it's recommendations, but maybe it is, I don't know.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else
Okay.
that,
I think we just have some
Yeah.
things over the next couple of days before we convene again on Thursday, and should all be good.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a nice
Okay.
weekend.
All right. Have a good
Bye.
start to the weekend, Jess, with all this. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.